So I had to drive down on a cold day. I mean, it was like ice up and down the Taconic State Parkway. Headed down to my beloved New York City. And it was pretty, as you can see, but it was just like ice. It wasn't so much snow, but just like solid ice skating rink kind of ice. But I certainly enjoyed the ride, and eventually I got to my homeland. And I hadn't been there for, I guess, a couple of months maybe. And it just always feels like home when I get there, no matter where I am in my life. This feels like home to me. I get to go to my favorite health food store and get my wheatgrass juice and pick up some of my supplements. And I actually love that side of the neighborhood. It's just a lot of stuff going on over there, and the elevated train is on that side of the hood, so that's always fun to look up and, you know, you can see the train like above your head, and the sound of it is just like really, really powerful, and I don't know, it's always energized me. I grew up underneath an elevated train on Jerome Avenue, so anyway, then I drove to the other side of the neighborhood, where I last lived for 8 years, over Gun Hill Road and going over to Bainbridge and passing all my favorite little shops, and Montefiore Hospital, which was a kind of a bad memory because during the pandemic it was like really difficult to live just a few blocks from the hospital, to feel that energy of all those people dying, but we're not going to dwell on that. Got to go to my old park where I would run every single day on Marshallou Parkway. And then just got to look up and down my old street, Rochambeau Avenue, where I actually lived when I was a little boy too. It was my first permanent home. So, of course, I got to see my beautiful building, 3171 Rochambeau, and I lived all the way at the top. It was a walk up. I had to walk all the way up the steps to get to the top. And you could see my apartment up there on the right-hand side, and right across the street is where my grandmother lived, and that was my first permanent home after being fostered 3 times. I was fostered and then adopted and lived in that apartment right there in that building for many years. And of course, when you go to the hood, you got to go to your favorite pizza place, which was gone. Sal's, the place from my childhood, gone, but this place replaced it. It was alright. Later that night, me and Audrey hung out, ate some Indian food in Valhalla, cute little town, but I had a lot on my mind, and yeah, it was a beautiful day, and here I am today. I want to shoot this film in anamorphic. I want to use my anamorphic lenses. The reason I want to shoot anamorphic is because I want to accentuate the environment. I want you to see what this world is. I want to make the world that I shoot it in as important as the people. And the reason that's even an issue is because, you know, there's much more to dealing with anamorphic lenses. They're bigger, there's math involved, you have to figure it out for post-production, you got to de-squeeze, you got to, you know, get it right in camera, you know, in terms of your monitoring and things like that. You have to think about stabilization. You just got to think about a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, I want it to look a certain kind of way. So I want to shoot an anamorphic, but, you know, I'm talking about that, right? I mean, I'm talking about anamorphic versus a spherical lens, because I could get a wide angle of view with a spherical lens. You know, I could use a wide angle lens, but it's not the same. It's not the same when you're squeezing the image and then de-squeezing it, and you're getting much more, and you're getting all the aberration on the edges of the frame, and, you know, all the inconsistencies. You're like sharp where you're focusing, but the rest of it, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on, and weird for me is beautiful. It looks beautiful. You get that oval bokeh, and you get just this weird kind of distortion. I think I used that word already, but I just like the way anamorphic looks a lot. But it's hard for me to like focus on that right now because I'm worried about, you know, this nuclear plant up in the northwestern part of the country, and how all these people are being fired, security people, engineers. You know, Google it. Oh, Google. I forgot, if you Google a map now, you'll see the Gulf of America, not the Gulf of Mexico. Who cares? But that's really stupid. That's really dumb. That's what we're doing? That's what we're spending our time doing. So yeah, I want to do that. I want to shoot anamorphic. I have the camera for it. My Panasonic S5 allows me to de-squeeze in camera. It's got an anamorphic mode. It's got anamorphic stabilization. I have two great lenses, a 35mm, which is kind of like a 40mm equivalent when you do all the math of, they're APS-C lenses. So there's a 1.5 times crop, so 35 to 52, but then you divide by 1.33, which is the squeeze factor of the anamorphic lens, so it's around 40, like just short of 40. And I have a 75mm lens, which is the equivalent, if you do all the same kind of math, of around 85mm. So I have like a 40 and an 85. Those are two of my favorite focal lengths. And I also get all the anamorphic vibe to it, that look that's just different. It's just different. So I don't, if I'm shooting spherical, I'm not going to crop it in scope. I don't really see any point in doing that. Although, if that's the aspect ratio I want, then that's what I'm going to do. But if I'm shooting in scope, and if I'm using that 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio, why not use anamorphic lenses if you have them? I have them. Siri. That's what I want to do. But I'm like, are we really, seriously, like, talking about the future of Ukraine, but not including them in the conversation? Like, we're only talking to Russia. Who does that? Like, include them in the conversation. That's just common sense. And in anything in life, two people should not get together and seal the fate of a third party unless you're talking about a little child. And so now that little child, who's not a little child but a grown-ass country, is getting together with all of Europe to talk about it while you're talking about it with Russia. No good could come from any of that. And I know, I don't want to be thinking about any of that. I want to be thinking about, do I need to get a better, tripod? Because, if I'm shooting anamorphic, my camera is going to be much heavier with the lens. And, I'm sometimes out in really challenging kind of circumstances outside. Right now I'm thinking about the light going up and down out that window because clouds are going in front of the sun. And so, the light's going up and down here, but I have a key light to make sure that my face stays with enough light so you can see me. I'm using manual focus, so I don't ever worry about autofocus. It doesn't matter to me. I got a hair light over, hair light. I got no hair, but I got a light over here to kind of balance off that side of my face. So thinking about that, do I need another tripod? I have a decent K&F concept tripod. It's pretty heavy duty. One of the legs broke, but I kind of fixed it so it works, and it's much more stable than my other tripods. But do I need like a real heavy duty tripod if I'm going to use that kind of rig? Do I need to get like a cage for my camera and support the lens a little bit, even though it's not, these Siri APS-C lenses are not so heavy where I'm worried about the, my camera so much, the mount. But maybe just to be safe, I should get a cage and get some support for under the lens, but that's a pain in the ass. I hate adding things to my camera. I don't use an external monitor. I don't do any of that. The only thing I do put on my camera is a shotgun mic because I like the sound outdoors to sound as good as possible because, my dialogue is always with a lavalier mic. Always. Unless I'm shooting YouTube videos sometimes, and if I'm really close to the camera, I use the shotgun mic. That's fine. If I'm within 1.5 feet or 2 feet. But right now, I'm like 4 feet from the camera, so obviously I got to use my Purple Panda, my Zoom H1N. Otherwise, it would sound ridiculous. Come on. Red, white, and blue land instead of Greenland. Like, are we even thinking about that? Like, why is that a serious thing for people in the government to talk about? Why are they even thinking about that when people are starving, people are homeless, elderly, like people are losing their Medicaid, Social Security possibly. Like, why are we talking about red, white, and blueland instead of Greenland? Why are we talking about Canada as a 51st state? It's ludicrous. Why is Canada, one of our best friends in life, mad at us like they don't trust us now? Why should they? Why should they? I don't want to be thinking about any of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do not want to be thinking. I cannot focus when I think about the highest ranking member of the Social Security Department, not member. You know, the person who's been basically running Social Security for 30 years quit yesterday because she didn't want to allow Elon Musk and his 20-somethings friends to have access to our Social Security information. And so rather than give it over, she just left, and then they just took it. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to, I don't want to think about it, Because if somebody starts to argue with me that that's okay, that they think that's reasonable, that somebody who nobody voted for, somebody who's talking about, Germany shouldn't feel guilty anymore about the Holocaust. It's time for us to, start going back to the far right. He's talking about, like, some of the stuff he's talking about is actually illegal in Germany. Like, in Germany, you can't even talk about anything that even remotely seems like you're inciting a Nazi movement again. Because Germany politics and social mores are based on never again. It's not that they're embarrassed about it. It's that they recognize we don't ever want to do that to any kind of people again, ever. And so I don't want to think about that this dude who's talking about stuff like that has got my personal information now. I don't want to think about it, I'd rather think like, would I ever switch completely to Micro Four Thirds? Because I got to be honest, sometimes when I shoot with my GH5, it's so much fun and it looks so good. And I can't even describe why it looks so good compared to my S5 sometimes, like the full frame. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's maybe because it's a 2x crop that the world is kind of packed in a little bit more, and maybe it's just more to my style that I like that I'm working with something that's looking at the world in a different kind of way. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't even make any sense, but it's not smaller. My GH5 is not smaller than my S5. It's not lighter. I mean, the Micro Four Thirds lenses that I have are lighter, but some of the really good, like the great Micro Four Thirds lenses, they're just as big as some, full frame lenses. So I don't know what anybody's talking about with that, but there is something about that GH5 that just, I love it so much. But my main camera is the S5 because I'm used to full frame. My lenses are full frame. I would have to get a whole new set of lenses. But I do think about it sometimes, and I even thinking about, going Blackmagic and getting one of their Micro Four Thirds cameras, or I could get the, the 6K Pro and stay full frame, and it doesn't even cost that much money. And then all my lenses would work because it's L mount. So I could have a 6K Pro and have all the Blackmagic stuff. And I use DaVinci Resolve, and it's the same company, so that would work. And yeah, because like, if I had a GH7, for example, I couldn't even use ProRes RAW because DaVinci Resolve doesn't like that. But DaVinci Resolve Blackmagic RAW, yeah. So that would make kind of more sense, But it's hard for me to think about that, It is. It's hard for me to think about that when, like what's going on with Mayor Adams in New York City, and, this quid pro quo where he's like, they're on TV with the head of ICE. He's on television with the head of ICE, and the head of ICE is saying, yeah, if he doesn't come through with what we agreed upon, I will be back here up his butt. Like, is there any other way to say that Mayor Adams got all of these crimes, alleged crimes, just taken away? There was a trial already set, and everybody in the Southern District of New York, the prosecutor's office, has quit because the Justice Department, of the new administration wiped everything out because Mayor Adams agreed to help them with this mass deportation thing. And so suddenly a lot of people that I know personally in New York are not going to be safe, even though they're law-abiding citizens, they pay taxes, they work, they're amazing people. Many of them have left unspeakable conditions in their country, and they love this country so much. They love the United States so much. This is New York City. This is the most diverse city on the planet Earth. And we're really being like that? Like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to think about it. I don't like it. You know? I'd rather think like, you know, if I get anamorphic lenses, what kind of, like, for micro four thirds, that's crazy. Like, I guess I would have to get the 24 millimeter micro four thirds and the 50, I guess. So, yeah, that would be a little harder to figure out. But, you know, it's basically the same. It is, because now that I think about the math, it's basically the same. So, that would work, you know. So, yeah, I do think about it sometimes. Because, and you know, it's for like an intangible kind of reason, like something I can't really describe because it's just the way it looks. Like that GH5, no matter what I pointed at, it just looks like a movie all the time. It's amazing. I don't understand. Like, I don't know what there's just something special about the technology built into that camera. There's something about that sensor. It doesn't even have an optical low pass filter. And that's why, you know, like, I'm still considering buying a used S1H just for the optical low pass filter. You know, I've always wanted that. I've dealt with Moiré a few times, and the S1H now is so cheap, and it's going to get way cheaper in a minute when Panasonic Lumix finally comes out with the S1H2 or whatever they're going to call it. And it'll come out. You know, it might come out next week, it might come out in 6 months, whatever. But I'm still thinking of the S1H, full frame. I wouldn't have to make any changes with lenses. I could just sell my S5. I'd probably get $500 for it now or something like that, so why would I sell it? Although, you know, it's not bad to put $500 towards the S1H, and then I'd wind up getting the S1H for like $800-900 tops. I see them, you know, I actually saw an eBay ad the other day for this guy, this place. I don't know if it was one guy or something like that, but they had 13 S1Hs for $1,300 a piece. So I don't know what that was about, but you know, but I do see them for $1,500, $1,700. That's like, the S1H is legendary, you know. Probably the best image quality you could get. Mirrorless, this side of a Burano, or you know, any kind of cinema camera, a Red or an Arri Alexa or whatever, like all the Blackmagic cameras, like the S1H is going to give you that quality. So, but it's very heavy camera. It's much chunkier than the S5 for sure. Chunkier than the GH5. I have to get used to that, but you know, that makes my stabilization better too, because the heavier the camera, the better the stabilization. You know, I would have basically the same menu system as the menu system I'm dealing with now, and so I do think about that, you know, and I'm thinking about how the lights are going up and down again in here, and it's bothering me, but I'm just dealing with it because, you know, I'm going to try to compensate for it in post-production, but it's just hard for me to think about all this stuff, you know. Like, I've got like a kind of a new friend, this guy Dan Farrar here on YouTube, and he just made a video because he lives 15 miles from this power plant that could, first of all, he's living in an incredibly toxic area in terms of nuclear waste. And he's living in a place where they could destroy the power grid up there. That would affect so many people. Like, imagine having no power. Or, you know, you one of these people, you know, getting ready to survive in the wild if everything goes down. Well, how long can you survive? What if the power is out for 6 months? What if you can't get on the internet? What if you can't use your cell phone because all the towers are down? What if you can't turn your lights on? What if you have no heat? What if you can't do anything like that? I mean, there are some people who could survive for sure, but I'm not one of those people. I know how to call the super. You know, lived in New York City most of my life. I'm like calling the guy downstairs who could fix everything. I'm like useless like that, and I think a lot of people are like me. It's hard for me to think about that, man. Like this guy who, I don't really know him, we've never met or anything, but I see him all the time on YouTube. He's walking his 2 dogs. I love watching his videos. Seems like the nicest guy. He's overcoming unbelievable odds to be a photographer, a great photographer. Does these amazing videos, and I'm not going to shout out what he's going through, but he's going through some shit that most people would be sitting at home crying all day. And he's living 15 miles from a place that could destroy the lives of so many people. And instead of supporting that, this administration is cutting, firing the majority of the people that work there, the security people, the people who are cleaning up nuclear waste, the engineers, just firing them. By the way, when they were originally let go, the administration, I don't know, I guess they had internal conversations about it and they realized what they had done. And so they tried to tell these people to come back that we're not letting you go, except that when they let them go, they deleted all their information, so they didn't know how to get back to them to tell them that they can come back, they're not fired. Like they didn't have their emails, they didn't have their phone, they didn't have any contact information. They got rid of everything, so they could not even get back to them. So it's not really organized, you know, like you want major change like this, you want to tear it all down, you want to destroy the system, you want to start over, okay, but at least do it responsibly, you know. And also bear in mind, you know, Mark Milley, a great, you know, general from the United States military who they also let go. But, you know, he commented months ago, he said, you know, of course we need a lot of change in this country. We need a lot of change in the military, all of it. It's all true. But if you just tear it all down at the same time, all you're going to be left with is rubble. That's true. That's a perfect way to put it. And it's hard to recover from rubble, especially when you've gotten rid of everybody who knows how to clean up the rubble and then rebuild. You know, 6 or 7 billionaires and just a very, very wealthy top class, they're not going to fix that shit. They don't care. They're living in their condos somewhere. They ain't worried about that. They ain't worried about you. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about me. So, you know, as I'm thinking about it, I'm perfectly fine with what I have. You know what I mean? I got Panasonic Lumix S5. I got all these vintage lenses. I'm using a Minolta Rokkor 35mm right now. I'm shooting at f4. It looks beautiful. The image is nice other than the sun going up and down, and there's a big window in front of my face right here, and it's kind of destroying this video, or trying to. But you're bearing with me, right? And on cue, the light starts to go down. I got my lights. I got everything I need. I'm cool. You know, I did 2 feature films with less than this equipment here, you know? Like, I'm good. I got what I need. I love the S5. I love what it does. I have my anamorphic lenses. You know what? I got no excuses to not do the best possible work that I could do. No excuses. I have no obstacles, none of that. The only thing that I have is time and energy and desire and determination and commitment. That's what I have at my disposal, and whether or not I want to use it is entirely up to me. You know, I have a story, I have a script, I have the ability to write a script. I wrote a script, you know, I've written a bunch of scripts. I've got 4 full-length plays, 2 feature films, a mini-series, hundreds and hundreds of poems, over 500 songs. I'd be writing all the time. So I have that. I have a great camera. I have 2 great cameras, S5 and a GH5, come on. I got great lenses. I got good enough lights, great lights. I got great tripods. I got everything, although I might get a better tripod, but I got pretty much everything I need. You know, I got great sound capability, like pro audio, 24-bit if I want, 16-bit, 44 kilohertz, 24-bit, 96 kilohertz. Like, I got anything, like 192 kilohertz if I want. I got the Hollyland Lark Max if I want to do wireless lavalier and figure out how to deal with the ugly microphone that they provide, but it sounds incredible. And it's so flexible, you know. And by the way, I got links to all of this stuff, so if you want to support me and use my affiliate links, that would be superhero status for me. So that's all in my description. But I have all this stuff. I'm happy with it. I'm ecstatic. I ain't, you know, like, it's fun to think about that, you know. And it's not to say that I won't use other gear in the future, you know. You know, who knows what kind of opportunities might arise, or what my mood might be. Or if I'm working on a project, maybe I'm collaborating with somebody who says, you know what, I really think we should do it like this, and we don't have it, then maybe I'll have to make some changes if I think that that's valid. So I'll never say never to any kind of change. You know, change is good. Change is good. And change is good in this country too, because, you know, as much as I'm upset about all these crazy changes and all this stuff, like, you know, let's face it, for many, many, many people in this country, this place has sucked throughout history. You know? I mean, if you're Native American, if you're black, if you're a woman, if you're Hispanic of various different persuasions of South American, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Spanish from Spain, like any, like, you know, you've been, you know, people of Spanish-speaking descent have done so much for this country that none of us know about. You should stop at the end of this video and go watch John Leguizamo's documentary on PBS about Latinos' contributions to the United States. You will be astounded about the shit that you never learned, that have never been in your books, learning history. You will be amazed. It is the most beautiful documentary and so important. So if you're gay, if you're trans, like, this has not been a good country for a lot of people. But at the same time, and what's unique about this country is it's been equal parts amazing for these people at the same time. Amazing. You know, do you think that, like, you know, somebody in 1930 or 1940 or even 1960 ever thought that somebody like Michael Jordan or LeBron James would have the kind of power that they have as a black man in America? And, you know, of course, you could say that it's still part of slave trade and they have owners and all this, but come on. They got millions and millions and millions of dollars, great opportunities. They live in beautiful places. They get to travel. They get to do great things. I mean, we could break it down into little micro stories about, you know, go deeper into, you know, what's going on still in this country with regards to race, but we're certainly progressing. And there has certainly been great opportunities for so many black people and you know, all kinds of people. You know, I just watched an incredible series on HBO, you know, part of True Detective, about, I think it takes place in the North Pole. Anyway, one of the lead actors, this woman, is Native, and it was her first acting role ever. I think she's a professional fighter. And so there are opportunities now for people, all kinds of people. John Leguizamo is a great example. He's a star, you know, but he's also had to work 3 times as hard as most people who are white doing the same things that he's doing, and that's just a fact. You know, I'm in that business, I know. I know that he's had to work 100 times harder. He's had to be 100 times, he's had to develop himself more to be more talented, and he is so talented. If you've ever seen him live on stage, he's so good, he looks like a cartoon. He doesn't even look real, he's so good. But he has to be that good, because if he was just regular, just great like everybody else, he probably wouldn't have gotten, you know, he probably would have gotten roles as drug dealers and stuff like that, pimps, you know, stupid shit. For women, come on. Women have been dogged in this country forever, forever.